Hi friends and people of goodwill. I was thinking about speaking today on a topic of less interest, at least in the Christian churches, like the issue of sin. So, why are we in this situation in which people are so confused and people suffer so many limitations in their common life and are so much controlled there and are purposefully driven into even more limitation and control? And why do we start feeling, the ones who are a bit awake, rather like victims of an oppressive totalitarian system? Is there anything to do with our free choice, in being in this situation? And as always, I am based on the teachings of the New Revelation through Jakob, Lorber and Gottfried Mayerhofer that have been given in the 19th century as a message from the Lord Jesus Christ himself to humanity in preparation for his second coming. And also I am based on the Bible, which is fully confirmed by these teachings, fully supported, and the Gospels that are in the scriptures are entirely contained. I mean the Gospels effectively and not the letters of the apostles, but everything that is in the Gospels can be found in these teachings. So the common base is both the Bible and the New Revelation. And what you discover in these teachings is that we are entirely responsible for what is happening to us, because we as community, as a nation, because we are endowed with free will, and in front of evil we should have an appropriate reaction, especially as Christians who have been given the discernment of good and evil in our scriptures and according to our human conscience, because believe it or not, there's a great support in the Gospels and in the letters of the apostles for the human conscience. There's nothing in the teaching of Christ that goes against the human conscience. They go fully together, and the conscience is attested in the New Revelation as being the voice of God in our hearts, the voice which guides us on the right path. So now, the simple idea is that, it seems we are responsible for what is happening here, and we are responsible because we have chosen to live a life that is deprived of the basic spiritual meaning attributed by God to our life. And the basic spiritual meaning is that we shouldn't live just for ourselves, but also for our fellow men. We should live our fellow men at least as much as we love ourselves. So this is the basic of Christian religion, love the other as yourself, and love God above all, God being the love itself, the creator and maintainer of all creation. So if you go through life just obsessed by yourself and your needs and pleasures and everything that pertains to self, you are unavoidably in the anti-order. You are not fulfilling the human dignity and the destiny that you have been endowed by God himself. So now, how did we come here? How did we come to this point in which it seems history repeats itself? We've seen restrictions of human rights before any dictator was put in place in the 20th century. This is how everything starts. People are warned that a huge danger is menacing the nation. So we have to give power to the leaders, and the leaders will find the proper solution, or the final solution, as both Hitler and Mr. Bill Gates affirmed. So they will come with a final solution, and we just have to obey like good soldiers and citizens, and everything's going to be all right, everything's going to be provided, and that's going to be God's will, as both Hitler and Mr. Gates affirmed. So now, in my humble opinion, this is how we got here. We allowed ourselves to live very unspiritual, abnormal, and selfish lives, as if not only God and nature, but also these our leaders are very much concerned about us really living our selfish lives. They have nothing against it. They just want to provide everything so we would be happy in our small selfish lives, which it seems unfortunately is not the case. And now it's time for us to see it, to become aware of it. It's exactly like with every members of an anti-order group. For example, if you are in a Freemasonic group, these are people who, are ruled by secrecy and by a very, very tight hierarchy. This is totally contrary to the Christian spirit, in which everything should be open and discussed among equal brothers and sisters. In fact, even the actual churches during the history are very much anti-Christian, and the Lord affirms this in the New Revelation, that once you go through the path of institutionalized religion, you belong to the upper echelon of the Antichrist. This has nothing to do with the real Christianity, in which everything is about love and true fellowship and true equality of man. Obviously, this was testified in the Bible, in which Peter tried to find out from the Lord who of them, the apostles, should lead the others. And the answer of the Lord was that the one who wants to lead should be the last one and serve all of them. That's the kind of leader that God himself would agree with, a humble leader whose purpose is not to rule and decide and think for all. That the fact that we see this everywhere today in what was supposed to be the greatest democracies of the world, and generations have fought and died for us to have this right, to free speech, to an equal right to our leaders to express our feelings and opinions. And now we see again that there's absolutely no comparison between their right to speak non-stop about what they think and what they want for us and our right to speak. We are censored and we are diminished in every human right we have. So, of course, this is totally unchristian what is happening in democracies. And if you look at history, the roots of all democracies in the Western world are entirely Christian. Why? Because you have this, basic ideology of the universal brotherhood of man. That's why we had, fighting for human rights and so many good developments in the Western world. And it was really a divine protection given to these countries to develop in every possible way, including scientific. This was a provision for a society that is based on the right principles of life. So what happened more recently, I think I'm just jumping from an idea to the other because it's so fundamental and so simple what I want to say. But the idea is that we allowed ourselves to live these selfish lives, believing that our leaders really agree with this and, help us and sustain us in leading these wee selfish lives in which we are very much centered on our, desires and pleasures and stuff. So because of a false belief like that our leaders are really concerned about us and not about their own interests and power and their own selfish interests, we reach this point in which we see each other as a divided nation, a divided planet, in which we have to, just stick to our very, very small possessions and very small rights that we are being given, and do not build anything together with other people, because everything, like in all fascist and communist dictatures, is provided by the states. There's no need for us to have any free association or free demonstrations or any free initiative that would involve groups and communities, because everything would be taken care of and provided by the state. And who's going to rule the state? You think politicians may be going to rule the state? We know who's ruling the state: the people with money, the financial elites of the world, because all the states during the last couple of centuries have done nothing else but getting in debt to these financial powers, who control everything through their secret societies and through their politicians. So now we also have been very much deprived of our basic spiritual culture as Christian nations because of all this influx of Luciferian theories and schools of thinking, like, all the New Age stuff, theosophy, anthroposophy, and I was an anthroposophist once, but it doesn't matter. So they are not Christian. They come, and it seems the basic belief of some of the elites, at least the Luciferian one coming from via Albert Pike and some other high Freemasons in the 19th century, is that in the Garden of Eden, what you have in the snake or Lucifer is the positive pole of creation, while Jehovah, the God of the Old Testament, is in fact the evil one. And this can be evidently sustained by all the atrocities and, evil things that you see unfolding, morally evil things that you see unfolding in the Old Testament. What these so-called illuminated people, the high philosophers and Masons and initiates of the 19th century didn't know, and what most of the Christians don't know, but is very clearly revealed in the New Revelation, is that the Old Testament, same as the Revelation of John, is written in a prophetic, spiritual language. You have to know the code in order to decipher what it's all about there. So when you see something that is morally, objectionable, the real thing is not what you can assess visibly. The real thing is beyond, and you have to know the clues. For example, you find many cases in which people are slayed, and prophets are doing this, or people of God. So this is supposed to be a good thing. But slaying doesn't really mean to kill them physically, but means to judge them or to convert them, even according to the Word of God. And with this, I've already, taken down one of the most critical, assessment of the Old Testament. And there are many, many things like this. We know that the Lord unveiled the Old Testament to his disciples. So he himself, when he spoke about his flesh and his blood, obviously he wasn't prompting people to perform cannibalism. So the flesh is his love. The blood is his teaching, where you speak about love and putting love into practice, active love, about not only talking, not only having the teaching, but also acting. So much of this, the Bible is written in this basically prophetic language that if you don't understand from a moral point of view a certain part of the Bible, you should better not touch it. They touch the Bible. I mean, these high philosophers and the foremost materialist ideology, how do you call this? The people with ideologies, that create this, have touched the Bible in order to demonstrate that it's a human, very abject piece of work, because they couldn't understand anything of it. Now comes the new revelation and explains everything, and people don't know about it, or people don't care that it exists. And for 150 years, as it is predicted in the Revelation chapter 11, these two prophets of the new revelation, the writers, the scribes, are treated as if dead, as if not here. This teaching doesn't exist. It doesn't affirm and confirm the Bible. It doesn't explain the Bible. It doesn't matter. Okay, you didn't want that. Instead of that, what you had in these last 150 years was this huge uprising of the Luciferian doctrines. So the Bible is bad. Okay, they came with the answer, because Satan is always ready to provide the answer to people. So now, the result of all these Luciferian doctrines was that people who were aiming to rule the world were enforced in all their evil intentions, because this is entirely a doctrine of self-love, a doctrine of the devils, totally opposite to the spirit of Christianity. So this has prevailed everything, and now we see it in New Age. It's obviously everywhere in Halloween type celebration, the celebration of the cult of death. But beyond this is pervading the whole culture. The movies that we've been fed with, the kind of quizzes you get, the kind of dumb down that people are served, the lottery, and in economy you have all this speculation culture in which people are urged to be a part of the system and to earn money that they don't deserve by speculation. This is totally devilish and against the spirit of God, because it makes people more self-centered and proud and isolated from their fellow men. What we are seeing today, what we are seeing today, us being isolated, everybody for themselves in their houses, preoccupied with their own destiny, and even isolated from their family members if possible. It's the last obvious stage that this anti-Christian spirit, these evil doctrines have driven us to all this time. First it was something philosophical, like in the 19th century. Would this be more appealing to you as a citizen or as an aristocrat than the Bible, who puts you to work, to serve your fellow man? Then it went into the culture and economy and pervaded everything, in the Christian nations, and took over Christianity with the rise of atheism. So people became more and more individualistic. That's the result of it. So first and foremost, we became selfish and isolated in a spiritual and psychological manner, and now we are even physical. That's evidently the last stage in the dehumanization of humanity everywhere. And now, believe it or not, there is a step further, however, but this doesn't pertain to humanity anymore. We are not supposed to be human. We are supposed to be transhuman, and this is what they are preparing for us. Because, of course, a human, once you isolate a human, you don't see much value in that person unless it's one of the ruling elite. So now, in order to survive what has become with all this anti-Christian spirit, more important than being human, more important than the core of humanity, which is pure love from God, respectively, the pure dead reason, which we see embodied in computers. So we have to reach this stage and become devoid of all our basic humanity and spirituality and merge with the machine. By merging with the machine, obviously the result is that you would be worse than a real machine and worse than a human being. You would be a mixture that surely performs less on every level possible. So you will never be able to beat the machine, but still you will be closer to oppose a certain resistance. Because it seems, according to Satan's instruction, the purpose is not to have living, loving human beings that are, on the way to becoming children of God, and with Him leaders of all creations, because that's the meaning of being a child of God, is on top of any angelic hierarchy. But this is also, this level of being really children of God in His image, creatures that would share everything with God, is to serve the whole creation. We should be embodiments of His love. We should rule by service and self-sacrificing love. So instead of being this, which is an absolutely extraordinary goal of life, that no other creature in all creation has any access to, except us people for whom the Lord of all infinity has come and died. Instead of becoming that, Satan wants us to become machines, or even less than machines, to merge with the hive mind and to, get rid of all individuality, because nothing like this has any importance anymore. So that's the trend that all this anti-Christian, spirit throughout the last 2-3 centuries has led us to. That's where we are. And when you see people coming together now, people are demonstrating in the streets all over the place because they want a chance to their old life, again. They want jobs and they want freedom. They want, the basic human rights back again. You feel like, yeah, there is so much good and so much hope in humanity, and every one of us is loved with an infinite love by our Creator. So there's so much to hope and fight for and to, to revere in this life. But we have to consider that the old life was not the life that we were supposed to live. The old life is what has driven us to this point. We do not we shouldn't want to go back to the old life. We should go back to the real life of love, in which we are not living just for ourselves, but also for our brothers and sisters, and we are ready to even sacrifice our lives for them out of love, as the Lord of all life has done. It's nothing better than to die for your friends. Nothing better, the Lord says that. That's the utmost victory of this life, if you can give such a proof of love. And how about, dying even for your enemies? That's what the Lord did. He died for all, even for His enemies, in order to redeem them. We should start a movement that would be based on hugging and kissing people. How about that? These are, words. It's written in the New Revelation, words are incredibly important, you know, as the Lord's words create reality. He himself is the Word of God, you know, or the wisdom of God. The words are incredibly important, but guess what? The human touch is even more important when we are together in love. A simple handshake, a simple kiss on the cheek, you know. This is our humanity. And even if these guys who for now control us may get the idea that they can oppress our humanity and turn us into something else that our Creator has made us into, the truth is that we have been given the power to oppose this. There is a life that you can obviously lose, but that's just the physical life. That's the most superficial thing that you can give in the end, because the soul, which is the real human being, which is exactly as this form, you know, but in a more etheric substance, this soul has been given eternity by the Creator, will never ever die, will never ever disappear. So yeah, so that's it. So that's it. Thank you very much, and bless you all, and bless the cameraman, and see you again. All the best.